When is a Gorgon not really a Gorgon? The newest magic set, Lorwyn Eclipsed, answers some big questions about the historic plane, but leaves me with a hairy conundrum that has nothing to do with the Lorwyn Shadowmoor day-night cycle and the gods that control it, but it does have to do with the story. It has to do with the characters from the story. Now, I actually had early access to the Lorwyn Eclipse story. Wizards of the Coast sent it to me because I was part of this world building panel, and they wanted to make sure that I could ask the right questions and answer the right questions. So they sent it to me, and me being the freak that I am about magic story, printed it out and took notes. This is the same thing I did with all of the other magic stories that I've read. You can actually see War of the Spark Forsaken behind me. Yes, my beautifully annotated copies are still there and still haunt me to this day. Now, I got to mull over this story on my airplane ride from Boston to LA, which is 6 straight hours of sitting there with no internet connection and just me reading these words and then maybe watching a movie on a tiny screen in front of me. I actually didn't watch a movie because the screens weren't working, but I would have if they were working. So I had access to the story, and it's not bad. It's not that good, but I thought that it had some strange things happening. You have a group of Strixhaven students that come through a portal on Arcabios, that's Strixhaven's plane, into Lorwyn. You have Sinar, an impulsive Prismari goblin. You have Kirill, a Lorehold vampire. Abigail, a deaf Silverquill owlin. And Tam, a Quandrix Gorgon that has probability magic. Technically, they're all first years that were on a field trip, so they're not in those colleges, but they're on the right track to be in those colleges, and the colors of their cards reflect that. And if you're wondering why Witherbloom isn't represented, it's because there is actually going to be a Golgari-colored, a green-black-colored elf joining them as they go back to Strixhaven. You have Lewin, who is in this story, who is going to, I think, round out their colleges a little bit and represent Witherbloom when they get back to Strixhaven. So we have all 5 colleges represented and their colors, depicted accordingly. And it's not our first time actually seeing these characters. The teaser art for The Secrets of Strixhaven and the early art shown for Evolving Wilds from Lorwyn Eclipsed shows this group, and some cunning people actually made that connection when these arts were first revealed in their teaser stream months and months and months ago. So our group of students needs to make their way home, and a Johnny who is sent by Liliana, who works at Strixhaven, is going to lead them back through a series of omen paths. They can't come back the way that they were originally lured through. And it's mentioned in the story that they're going to head back through Chandalar, which is Tam's home plane. And this is where it all falls apart. Tam is a Gorgon. She is from Chandalar, and she has hair. If you look at the art from this set, Tam has long white hair with red tips tied into large braids. It doesn't end in tendrils, it distinctly frays at the ends, and it's definitely not snakes. Gorgons take a lot of different forms across different magic settings. Some of them have scaly skin, naga-like tails instead of legs. Some of them have snakes for hair. Some of them just have tendrils for hair. But it's never just hair. Now, maybe this is just how young Gorgons on Chandalar are. It's hinted that she isn't able to paralyze anyone yet. But who needs to turn people into stone when you're mathemagical? But that's making excuses. We've seen Chandalari Gorgons before, and even had a short story featuring the Gorgon's attempt to free herself from a curse by bringing the eyes of a righteous man to pay off a debt to a demon. And if you search for Chandalar Gorgons before Lorwyn Eclipsed came out, this story was the first result. And on that same page, as the first full-size spotlight image, is War Priest of Thune, who has a similar trait to Tam. Long white hair ending in red tips. It's in dreadlocks, which are similar to Tam's braids, which begs the question, did the art director for the magic set search online for guidance on how to depict a Chandalar Gorgon, find this page, look at the first image, and say, yep, that's what they look like? Is a bad case of Google foo the reason why Tam looks so strange? Yeah, I sure think so. The actual Gorgon in the story on that page is the Zathrid Gorgon. Zathrid being a demon, Gorgon being her creature type, and she has two different art pieces because she had a piece from the set and then a pre-release promo art. Both of these pictures show a Gorgon with tendril-like hair that curls and raises on its own, like many of the other Gorgons we've seen, kind of like the Ravnican Gorgons. One of the two does have a patterned texture that kind of looks braid-like, but it has clearly pointed ends. This is nothing like how Tam looks. So is Tam's appearance because of poor research? Or is there another mystery to unravel? I've actually seen some theories online about Tam's character, which could give a hint at her art's background. But in order to explain these theories, I'll need to give a bit of background on what's been happening in Magic's story across the last few years, because the main thread, the plot that connects the sets, is not depicted on the cards. So unless you've read the story or heard from somebody who has, you probably missed that Jace exploded. Okay, wait, let me rewind. During the Phyrexian invasion of the multiverse, Jace Beleren, a planeswalker, tried to destroy Realm Maker, a corrupted version of the World Tree, which the Phyrexians were using to cut into different planes and attack from New Phyrexia. Before he was able to finish activating the Sylex, which is a magic artifact recreated from the same artifact from the Brothers' War, Elspeth took the Sylex and brought it into the Blind Eternities, a place between planes, you might know it as where the Eldrazi came from, where it then detonated, damaging the multiverse's structure, creating omen paths, and desparking many of the current planeswalkers. This allowed the Phyrexian invasion to ravage many planes, continuing until the Praetors were taken down on New Phyrexia, and then New Phyrexia phased out. The toll to many planes is massive, with populations dwindled, cities destroyed, and people left broken and scarred by the attacks. Jace, seeing his failure to detonate the Sylex as part of why the invasion went on so long, seeks to right this wrong. But of course, he's Jace! So he does this in the stupidest way possible. He, in disguise as Ashiok, puts together a posse to break into the Thunder Junction vault to get loot. Loot is a little guy who has magical navigation capacity. Jace then uses Loot as a magical GPS to locate the Spirit Gem. He loses Loot in Duskmourn. Oops. But Loot is then, used as a GPS in Aetherdrift by the Racers sent by Duskmourn and Valgavoth, where he is then captured, freed, and re-kidnapped by Jace. Jace puts Loot into a torpor state and uses him as a compass, making his way to Tarkir during the events of Tarkir Dragonstorm. From there, he goes through a temple within the Dragonstorms themselves to get to the Meditation Realm, where Ugin has been containing a desparked Nicol Bolas since the events of War of the Spark. Then, while Ugin is distracted by his brother Bolas, Elspeth, and Narset, Jace grabs the Spirit Gem and then shatters, presumed dead by those watching. However, those of us who unfortunately read War of the Spark Forsaken know that touching the Spirit Gem means you get access to wish-granting powers. It can sever bonds to the Chain Veil. It can let the invisible be seen. And presumably, it can allow Jace to rewrite history, meld timelines, or otherwise cause whatever fallout we'll see in Fractured Reality, the set that's coming out in 2026. None of that was depicted in cards at all, by the way. So if you're wondering why you didn't know about it, it's because they forgot to put it in the set. It's not in the art, it's only in the story. So Jace has made some sort of universe-altering wish to try to fix the events of the Phyrexian invasion. We see some first hints at this at the end of Lorwyn Eclipsed story, where Liliana is confronted by herself, but color-bent to be dressed in a white gown. Could this be Liliana if she never turned to necromancy? If she was able to heal her brother? Right, back to Tam. Part of Jace's motivation for all of this was to make a better world for Vraska, who's been his romantic partner on and off for a few years, starting back in the original Ixalan sets. They had tried to have children together, but failed to, which brings us here to Tam. Tam's a Gorgon. Vraska's a Gorgon. Tam is green, Vraska's green. Jace is blue. Tam is also blue. That's how kids work, right? You just kind of mash the color identities together and see what happens. Part of why I don't think this theory holds that much water is because Tam is a Gorgon, as in her creature type is only Gorgon. If she were Jace and Vraska's biological child from another timeline, Tam would be a human Gorgon, unless Jace, I guess, turned himself into a Gorgon, which would be a really weird thing for him to do. But there's no reason to obfuscate the creature type. Even before we knew that Oko was Kellen's deadbeat dad, Kellen was typed as a human fairy. Half-elves are similarly given the 2 creature type, and the Simic have shown that any 2 pair of creature types is fair game for somebody of a mixed background, even in elf ooze like Vannifar. But if they had adopted a child together, Tamara being a Gorgon makes plenty of sense. 2 planeswalkers, 1 former, 1 current, adopting from a 3rd plane. Spread that parental love across the multiverse, guys. But maybe Jace's wish on the egg, Spirit Gem, made him into a Gorgon. Maybe it is their child. Sure. But why would she look like a human from Chandelure? We know that Tam is trying to hide whoever her mentor is back at home. Could that be Jace? Maybe. Zathrid? I guess. Maybe even the Raven Man, who's been meddling in the plots in the background for decades of Magic's history. Maybe Jace is concealing Tam's actual appearance. Jace is an illusionist, and plenty of other characters in Magic's multiverse are capable of transforming or changing how somebody looks. Maybe she isn't even real, and she should be a Gorgon illusion. She's just a collective hallucination brought to life by your least favorite telepath. But why does she look like that? How is she old enough to be a university freshman if Jace and Vraska have only been together for at most a decade? And why do I even care? This entire video has been me nitpicking on a small art detail on a single card in a set that just came out because, well, I have nothing better to do with my life, and I have a deep, unsettling obsession with some of my favorite games, like Magic the Gathering. Yeah, I love spending too much time thinking about fictional characters that appear on tiny pieces of cardboard, and it's a great hobby to have. Will I ever get answers to my questions? Will I find out if this was an art director doing a little bit of bad research? Or will I find out if there's a real story reason for Tam's appearance? Maybe I will, because Tamara is going to be back in Secrets of Strixhaven, which is an upcoming Magic set. It's not the next Magic set, that's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I'm considering it the next set because it's the only one that's within the story, and TMNT has actually already been almost entirely spoiled by accident. And that's not what this video is about, but if you didn't hear about it, if you went to a Lorwyn Eclipsed pre-release, you had a chance of getting, as your pre-release promo, a rare or mythic rare from TMNT. This is not on purpose. They changed the promos for pre-releases to not be stamped, so they're probably processed in the same printing facilities as regular sets. Somebody must have mixed up a couple sheets of TMNT, so they got into the mix of the Lorwyn Eclipsed pre-release promos, so people are opening TMNT cards, and we've seen pretty much every single rare and mythic rare from the set, and Lorwyn Eclipsed isn't even out yet. This happened during pre-release weekend. It was probably only like a 1% chance that you opened one of these rares, but 1% of the packs across thousands and thousands and thousands of people doing pre-releases for this really cool new set means that we've seen a whole lot of turtles. And, yeah, whoops, they get rid of stamped pre-release promos and we end up with this. Good job, Wizards of the Coast. You answered my questions about turtles, but not my ones about Gorgons. Hopefully you too are seeking answers to the questions, the mysteries of the multiverse, and also wondering if somebody just misread a story and looked at the wrong picture. I can't wait to find out the real answer.